Oui. Hello? Hello?
Hello, yes, this is Jay, the teacher.
Hey, it's Michelle from ICA.
Yes, Michelle, thanks for the link. Yeah,
Okay, I wanted to just make sure that you had everything you need.
yes, I do. The only thing is I can't turn my webcam so they can see my face yet.
Okay.
I have enough, they look at the PowerPoint lecture and then the sketchbook. And for me to, I think we're just gonna have to stick with that for a while until I get everything figured out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I have a call at noon
Okay.
on a Zoom. So it's like a different Zoom. So I don't know if I make you host and then you can admit everybody.
You have a call at noon. Okay, because in 10 minutes, because Valerie normally does. See, I don't know how to invite people. So.
Yeah, so okay, so what I can do.
I'm really kind of new to this, so.
No, it's fine. I'm just thinking. So so if I make you a host, you can go down to the bottom of your screen where it says participants.
Okay.
And a pop-up should come up. And when you're host, you can see who's waiting in the waiting room.
Okay.
And you can either admit them or remove them. Here, let me share my screen real quick.
Okay, because right now I'm not a host, you're the host, right?
Exactly, yeah. So do you see this little, this window, my really messy desktop? Do you see this window that popped up?
Actually, let me get my glasses. Hold on just a minute.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I can see your desktop.
Okay, so it should be, if I go here and say make host, which I'm gonna do right now, you should be able to bring up this box and see like the option to admit.
Okay.
That's me. I don't know why it's showing that I'm trying to get into the call right now.
Okay, oh, I see. I have to just click admit them.
Yeah, so if you hit admit, it will like let Michelle Pico into the call. Okay. But again, I don't know why it's showing me trying to get in because I'm signed in as ICAA, so I couldn't tell you. I don't know. But as people join the call, you'll see them. That list there will grow. And when there's more than one person, you can like admit all at one time.
Okay, so you're actually making me the host then.
Yeah, so you're the host right now. So see on my screen how there's this little cloud in the recording?
Hold on just a minute. A cloud in the recording.
Yeah, so that means it's recording to the cloud of where this call was made, which is perfect. And then it means I can leave the call and it's not going to affect the recording or the call at all. It will stay live for you.
Okay, so I guess, so now you're going to change over to where I'm the host.
I'm sorry, what?
You're going to change it over to where I'm the host now?
Yes, you are currently the host right now.
Oh, good, okay. Because we have 5 minutes, I guess. So I guess when I get out of this screen where you're sharing your screen, then I can go to participants and just allow them to come in.
Yeah, so I don't know, hold on. Can you see this little black bar on the bottom of my screen?
The black bar on the bottom of yours.
That says like, it's the Zoom control, says mute, stop video, participants. Do you see that? It might not show up during the screen share.
No, I see that.
You do see it. Okay, so if I hit so what you're gonna do is you're gonna go to, participants, and this little box will pop up. And as the host, you should see who's waiting.
Okay. Then I just click admit and they're in.
Yeah, so let me stop my share so you can try that and see if you have those controls and can see that.
Okay, you mean on my end, so.
Yeah, on your end, just kind of do a little trial run. Don't have to admit anybody yet because it's still early, but just make sure that the control to do that is accessible on your side.
Okay, so on my end of the Zoom meeting, I clicked on participants, and there's actually 2. So
There's 2 people waiting.
no, it's just you and myself.
Okay, so that means that nobody else has joined the call yet.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Yeah, so then you'll be able to, and what I'm gonna do really quick, just to double check before the call starts, is I'm gonna leave the meeting and I'll come right back. I just wanna make sure that it stays live for you.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll be right back, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you were muted. I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, I just realized I was muted because I came in as a participant, so it automatically mutes the participants.
Okay.
So that was perfect. So that you didn't have any disruptions when I left.
Mhm.
So I can hang out a few more minutes
Okay.
just in case you have any questions that pop up.
Michelle, do I need to close out and enter again?
No, you're perfect. You are the host. I was just confirming that you are the host.
Yes.
So when I left the meeting, so I can leave at noon. When I left,
Okay.
that it wasn't going to end the meeting, and it didn't.
Okay, because I don't see any participants yet. So I guess they're not, and it's almost 12.
Oh no. Okay, let me. Did everybody come on early last time?
They were ready to go at 12, yeah.
Okay. Let me look at what got sent out on Constant Contact because it should. I like double check things. Okay, hold on. Yeah, because the reminder email was sent out yesterday to all of the participants.
Okay. Now, actually, KB Fitzpatrick is waiting to enter.
Okay, so they are starting to join now. So
Yeah.
you can wait until there's some more people, and whenever you're ready to admit everybody,
Okay.
you can do that and then do a little intro because this is part 2, right? So they already met with you and kind of know about the class and stuff.
And also, so to admit people in, I go to the bottom of the screen, click participants. And
Yep, and then you should see a list. Like right now, participants, it says me and you, right? ICA Texas and Jason Cantrell. And then there should be like waiting room or waiting with a button next to their name to admit or to remove.
Okay.
You want to make sure you're omitting everybody.
Okay, there is a button that says admit all.
Yep, you can do that too.
I think, okay, because there's only one other person, but yeah, I think Valerie said there were like 35 people registered.
Mm-hmm.
It's only one other person right now. But there's at least 5 or 6 definite attendees in class.
Okay. Yeah, so the email went out yesterday to, so I'm going to try to see if this works. So open Zoom, I'm already in here. So the email that went out yesterday was the correct link. I just double checked. So it's just maybe, I don't know. Let's give it another minute. And then if I need to resend that like immediately right now, I can do that. Let me do that right now. Let me just send that right now again one more time.
There's another, oh, it says there's 2 Michelles.
Yeah, because I just tried to join the call.
All right. Yeah, why don't you just go ahead and send out another reminder?
I'm gonna make a copy of this email and send it out right now, saying like starting now in the subject. Okay. Oh, shoot. Okay, so I'm going to continue. Okay, so it might take a minute to send out, but
Okay.
it's sending out now. And then the subject really large, or like starting now. So hopefully
Okay, good.
that gets on everybody's radar. Has anybody else tried to join?
Yes, there's 2 other people, but we just have 4 in the waiting room. Should I just admit them?
Yeah, you can omit them. I'm gonna shut my video off.
Okay, there we go. Okay, here, I think there's some other people, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so you know how to control that now. I'm going to hop off the call. If you have any issues, just call my cell phone or send me a text, okay?
All right.
All right, thank you.
Hello, students. We're just trying to get everyone together for the class. We just had some technical difficulties. Can you guys see my drawing table? I think, let's see. Yeah, we only have 5 right now. I'm just going to wait a few minutes till we get everyone together. Can you guys see my hand waving? Okay, good. And then to answer questions, you guys can unmute yourself and then you can mute it. Just have to go back and forth. I'm not able to move my webcam around to where you can see me in person, but I have enough going on with the sketchbook and the PowerPoints. So you guys were in the class last Tuesday, right? I think some of you guys were. Okay. Okay, are you guys able to hear me fine then?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes, just fine.
So Michelle, you're still there? Yeah, I'm just waiting because I think we have roughly about 30 people that is registered and there's only 5, but I guess it's only 12:04. Hope you don't mind waiting another 5 minutes. Okay, so there's more people coming in. Okay, if you don't mind, I think we'll get started in about 5 minutes. I just want to make sure everyone's here. I just hate to keep people waiting that are actually on time, but so those of you that are waiting in class today, we're going to be drawing what's called an analytique. And I'm sure you've probably seen these in your classical research and studies that an analytique actually draws an elevation, a cross section, and a floor plan just on one sheet. But I'm just going to break down the individual parts so it'll make it easier for you actually to draw. One thing we're going to focus on is how to properly draw the golden section, which is roughly based on the square. Have you guys actually drawn? I'm sure you've seen the golden section before. You actually drawn that? And you can answer in the chat or in.
Yes.
Okay, good. You've actually drawn that. Okay, good.
Yes, it's been a while.
Okay. Yeah, I teach modern architecture students at UTA, and they have no idea what that is. But it's a really intriguing drawing system to do. So those of you, if you took the perspective drawing class on Thursday, this is what we did in class on Thursday. It looks like a very complicated subject to draw, but there's some very simple tools you can use to actually draw something foreshortened like this. Are you guys able to see the PowerPoint as well?
No.
Okay, you should see two things. Let me see if I can get this figured out. Okay, are you able to see it now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm just trying to admit some other people in the class. Okay, it's already almost 12:15. I think we'll go and get started. You know, the other participants are late, then they're late. I just need to make sure I check to admit them in the class. So you guys can see the PowerPoint, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, this is a kind of a review from what we learned about on Tuesday. I just was showing you some slides showing the language of drawing as a communication, mostly through drawings and very little words and text until the Egyptian hieroglyphics became a language of characters to form a very primitive alphabet. You know, then on Tuesday I showed you how to actually, you know, we just loosely kind of based some of our drawings on how to properly draw shades and shadows. So this class will be a little bit more in depth in showing shades and shadows. We're going to be doing some freehand sketches. You're going to be drawing something like this in your sketchbook. Then I showed you Piranesi drawings. Piranesi did a lot of renderings for Robert Adam, so on and so forth. Then I showed you, of course, some of my, I'm just giving you kind of a quick review. The capabilities you can do with just, you know, the pencil. Are you able to see my drawing table and the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay. So pretty much these were all done with just, you know, a 2B or an HB pencil from the Statler collection, or yeah, the Statler has the best pencils. There's some other pencils out there. Kimberly is very popular, but the line weights in her selection are really not that adequate. So if you use Statler pencils, you can get some results like this, very intense, you know, graphite drawings. Okay, so in my sketchbook, I think you can see the word analytique. That's kind of, we're just going to be doing some preliminary drawings today on how to actually show this. Let me see if I can admit some more people in. Hold on just a minute. Okay, it looks like we only have about 8, so. Okay, so I think last, you know, on Tuesday, we just learned how to properly sketch something. In your sketchbook, I'd like you to start attempting to draw this pedimented portico with an arched opening in it. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to kind of break these down into parts. Really, for it to be an orthographic projection, they will be drawing the plan and the cross section later. We're just going to start drawing the elevation. So I would get your pencils in your sketchbook ready. And to do this, I'm just going to quickly break down the parts or the nomenclature of this assembly here. So if you look at the pediment, then roughly to sketch this out, then you can see that the pediment is roughly about half of 45 degrees, which is roughly 22.5 degrees. So what I would do is first actually sketch the 2 squares, and then let me show you how to properly do it.
Are we watching you sketch? Or are we still on your PowerPoint?
Can you see the sketch table?
No.
Oh, okay. Hold on just a minute.
Thank you.
Okay, I turned screen sharing off. Can you see the drawing table?
No.
Okay, hold on a minute. Okay, what are you seeing now?
Your PowerPoint.
Okay, let me turn it off.
Jay, I see both. You might have to have side by side turned on
Okay.
on your own specific setting as a viewer.
Thank you.
Okay, so I don't see side by side at all.
Yeah, not for you, Jay, for the
Yeah.
participant.
Thank you. That helped. I'm with you now. Sorry to interrupt.
Sorry, you know, we're kind of new to this. I'm just trying to get some glitches worked out. So everyone can pretty much see the drawing table, right?
Yes.
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 Okay, good. So in my sketchbook, did you guys see this earlier? We're going to be drawing is what's called an analytique. You're going to be drawing an elevation of kind of an arched pediment with the plan and the section beyond this. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Okay, so really the way this is called orthographic projection because you project up orthographically parallel and perpendicular these elements. You can draw a section and then a plan and then generate the elevation from these two fields. Or you can work backwards. You can draw the front elevation first and then the section on the plan. We're going to actually be doing both. The first thing we're going to be doing is just sketch an elevation of this first. So on my sketch table, you can see the arch niche on the pediment, right? Okay, so there are some basic graphic strategies to figure out how to do this on a separate sheet of paper. You don't worry about drawing anything yet. Just kind of watch me while I draw. If you look at this, you're thinking, how would I properly draw this rectangle, this pediment with the proper angles, actually having to measure something? The first thing I would do is just observe this and maybe look at the fact that this is 2 squares in elevation, which means what I would do is to first lay this thing out. You know, the pediment roughly in classical architecture is roughly half of 45. It's 22.5 degrees. So if I just were to sketch the 2 squares, I would divide it in half. And then the angle of the pediment will go like that. So there's several different parts. You know, this, of course, is a square. There's several different parts to this. Is that here is the cornice with an OG profile at the bottom like that. Then the pieces fit underneath that as the architrave. And then we have the main body as the 2 square rectangles. Like that. So those are some basic parts on how to draw just the front of this. You can actually sketch this without measuring just from observation. So in your sketchbook, let's see if you can actually properly draw these 3 elements, the cornice with the OG profile, and OG, of course, is the curvilinear piece that's like this. And then you're going to be drawing the architrave and then the 2 square proportional relationship. Let's just see if you can simply draw the triangular pediment the architrave and then just the 2 squares. And you can measure this. You can use your straight edge, so on and so forth. Let's see if we can just lay this out first. I'm sorry, we do have some kind of late guest in here. We have about 10. So I think there were some people that were running behind. Is everyone admitted into the presentation? Okay, those of you that were running a little bit late, we just started sketching. We're going to actually be drawing this arched pediment in your sketchbook. You can use Strathmore, you can use a sheet of paper. We're just going to be starting to figure out how to draw the angle of the pediment. What I was saying is really the pediment is roughly 2 squares. 45, and then half of that will be the angle of the pediment, roughly 22.5 0.5 degrees. Really, Palladio and a lot of the other classical architects use this angle as kind of a standard angle to show the pediments. Then to draw the rest of the body, you're just going to be drawing 2 squares to show the proportions. So then you'll draw 1 large rectangle for just the body of this, then we'll go back and draw the curve in that. So let's see if you can sketch that in your sketchbook. Am I going too fast for everyone?
No.
Okay, good. Okay, on another sheet or a separate sheet of paper, let's try to draw. What I'm going to show you is how do you draw this opening with the arched niche in it. So really, if you draw a semicircle, you can draw 2 squares. Then you'll just go back and draw the arch around that. So in other words, it would look like this. Then I would just simply freehand the curve. If you remember some of the tricks from the last class, then you can take a scale or a little cheat sheet and measure the radius and mark off points throughout the curve, and that will give you the proper curve on how to draw that. So in the elevation, you're just going to have to kind of eyeball from observation how to just draw this opening like that. And your sketches should have a lot of investigation because we're not going to go out and build this thing. It's really just kind of a preliminary sketch study. So then what we're going to do next is we're going to try to draw the proportion of this opening. If you remember from history classes or architecture classes that the regulating line is the diagonal that shows proportional relationships. And by that, this is actually a golden section underneath the curve. And if I'm going too fast, please let me know. So to draw the golden section proportion of the opening, I would start with a square. You can measure this so it's exactly the same length and width. Then you'll go back in and divide the middle section of this, the midpoint. If you have a compass, then this is the best way to actually draw the golden section. Is that from the midpoint and then the end point. Can everybody see this? Is that to determine the golden section rectangle, you'll be drawing the other edge of that rectangle like this. And if you're more than welcome to free, it doesn't have to be exact because it's simply just freehand sketch, but in your sketch, you can just quickly freehand what that curve would look like. So really this becomes the opening of the arched niche. And then to draw the curve on top of that, it'll be just like that. So this is how you properly draw the golden section rectangle on the opening of the arch, like that. So then to finish this, you'll just go back and draw the ledge and then the brackets underneath. And really you should either be using an HB or a 2B ledge to draw this so it's dark and clear. I'm drawing with the worst drawing tools, a Sharpie marker, just because it's clear on the webcam. If I were drawing in pencil, you probably wouldn't be able to see that. So, So how is everyone doing on that so far?
Fine.
Okay, good. Let me see if there's some other participants to. Yeah, in the lecture, I kind of had to assume that you really have never really drawn before that much. So hopefully they're not too boring. I just think that if you haven't drawn in a while, these are great, exercise studies to learn about geometry and how to properly sketch something. If you start analyzing and you do field sketches in person, you can start visibly figuring out there's some other proportional investigation that some of the architects really didn't intend. Like this is probably 1 square. If you're actually to study that and analyze it, there's probably some multiple overlapping squares in just this one bay. Okay, let's kind of go back to some of the lectures from Tuesday. Let's take a look at the ideology or the proportions of that or the shadows on that curve. And you don't have to sketch these. This is kind of just an example, but so this shadow is very different than this one. Because if you look at the plan, this shadow on the left would yield this. So the solar angle would be that. But then this one, would, of course, would be a curve in plan. So just by the language of the shadows that fall, you can tell the plan of these without really having to actually draw these. But for our intents and purposes in the sketch, we're going to be showing these as, now I didn't unfortunately leave enough room to draw the plan of that, but you can superimpose another piece underneath this and try to draw just the plan of that. So for this sketch, what we're going to be doing is drawing an orthogonal plan like this. If you use orthographic projection, which you probably should do, it's a very proper drawing system of that, you would continue these elements down and then go back in and draw the plan. Are we ready to take a break and draw the cross section?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so with orthographic projection, what I would do is draw some horizontal lines. Now remember, this is called the spring line. So then on the cross section, what I would do is just draw a vertical line just for the wall surface itself, like that. Then you kind of just have to imagine, later we're going to be doing shades and shadows, but just kind of imagine the thickness of things. It can be as thick or thin as you want it to be. So these just give you guidelines about how to actually properly draw this section. So the section through this would roughly be, I just made it really thick just for drawing purposes, a curve like that. Then we'll go all the way back into the wall. Then the architrave will be here like that. then if you draw a cross section, it's a vertical cutting plane line through this body of space or an object. So then here is the top of the apex, the top of the arch. And just for fun, you can draw the sill can be sloped for water drainage. Then I would go back and draw the ledge. Then the brackets can be, kind of either a volute or just kind of a wavy profile. Then I would go back and then shade in and poche the wall thickness. Now you can draw a curve because since it's an arch niche, which will yield a different shadow. This curve will yield a shadow like this in elevation. If you look at Henry McGoodwin's Architectural Shades and Shadows, is that he's actually graphically and scientifically calculated the way the solar angles fall to actually create this shadow. But for the elevation sketch, we can simply just use this one because it's actually easier to draw. So which would actually be this profile. That. So then since you're going to be seeing this edge beyond an elevation, you're going to just be doing a very thin line to show that this is not an element that's cut in the cross section. So let's go ahead and try to draw that in your sketchbook. It's really fascinating that you can actually use geometry to draw the subjects for you. If you were to actually draw this just by observation, not knowing that, then a lot of my students draw, stuff like this, where it's completely out of proportion, where the pediment is way too steep. Like that, they start drawing ellipses. It just looks like a terribly misproportioned element. So by studying geometry in your sketches, you can actually convincingly draw a properly proportioned pediment with an opening without actually measuring anything. Okay, and then let me know when you guys are finished. I'm going to show you how to properly draw shades and shadows on this. And if you guys are really good at figure drawing, you can draw a sculpture in the niche. I'm really not great at drawing figures unless I look from a photograph, but you don't have to draw this, but there's normally objects inside the niche itself. Okay, so can I move this sketch away from the table for a moment?
Yes.
Okay. Let's try to draw the shadows on some of these elements. So I'm going to move this out of the way. Now you don't have to draw sketches in your sketch, right? Just kind of watch me while I draw for a minute. So if you look at the nature of shades and shadows, this is a very primitive and easy way to draw shade, because you can see the PowerPoint, right, for a moment. Can you guys see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay. Now look at if you look at the reason because these are some very compelling three-dimensional images. These are very mathematically calculated with solar angles. We're not going to be doing that. You can actually just kind of eyeball from observation how the shadows fall. But if you look at the original sketch that we did, it's roughly two-dimensional. It's a nice sketch, but when you start adding shades and shadows, it looks incredible with just a few simple strokes. I had to show 3 dimensions on that two-dimensional elevation. So let's go back to the drawing board for a minute. So let's take a look at this object. It's just kind of a square horizontal block with a little articulation at the top, like the architrave that we're drawing. So in any sketch you draw with shades and shadows, try to draw just a nominal 45-degree angle for the sun. Let's say the sun is up on the top or left. On my screen, it's actually backwards. Is it on the top or left? Is it on the left side in your screen?
Yes.
Okay, because my webcam photographs everything backwards, strangely enough. But anyway, so I would just draw some light guidelines. So what I was saying on Tuesday, the sun is a wonderful draftsman. You know, the sun actually draws the profile of this edge. Oh, my pen's running out. The profile of this edge onto the surface it's cast upon. So in other words, it will just draw the same profile like that. Like that. You know, it's actually intriguing because the sun actually draws objects as a parallelogram onto the back plane. If I were just to draw a simple block with no detailing, it would simply just be this. So just given that sort of ideology, you can see that all the angles exactly connect from one corner to another. You just go back in and shade. And then when you shade something, I just like to maintain a nominal 45-degree just for the consistency of the sketch. I've noticed my students that really haven't learned how to shade it will draw the shading with all different angles. It looks very fussy like this. It goes here and then it's like this. It looks very fussy. It's always nicer to draw just consistent grain for the shading. Okay, so let's go back to the arched niche. Okay, so let's use orthographic projection again and cast these elements down. And just draw a very simple floor plan of the arch niche. Like this, we can do it. Let's draw this one straight first. Okay. So if I were to draw the shadow in on this arch, I would probably start with the 45-degree angle plan, then project up to the back wall. So let's do 45 degrees in elevation from the spring line down. What you're doing is you're transposing the spring line here down onto the back plane of this. So then I would just draw exactly the same radius onto the back like that. You know, depending on the time of day, that shadow looks very deep on the wall. If I were to choose probably like maybe around noon or 2 in the afternoon, it would roughly be here. So which would make the shadow much shorter. But you know, we're just having fun here. There's no right or wrong answer to do this. So when I'm drawing these shadows on the elevation, let me redraw this again. Okay, so everyone should have that drawn on their sheet of paper or their sketchbook, right?
Yes.
Okay. I hope I'm not boring you with these. I just, again, I have to assume that you guys really haven't drawn before, but these are just some very basic, shades and shadows are very complex in actuality, but when you sketch them, there's some very easy techniques that you can show how to properly draw the three-dimensional surface. So what I would do is on the elevation, we have the plan that I just showed you. So you guys can see both elements, right? Together, okay. Okay, so then on the elevation or the facade, I would just lightly draw some 45-degree angles. Here, here. Oops, uh-oh, I missed a spot there. The spring line, they draw another angle from the corner. Then what I would do is just go back in and try to draw the same profile that's here on the front edge. The sun transfers that as a diagonal onto the back plane, like this. Let's look at larger detail of that. So then all the angles will be, the solar angles will be cast from one corner. On that. In other words, what you can do is let's take a look at this example, this detail. To properly draw that, then the sun transfers the same profile onto the back plane like this. All you have to do is connect the dots and shade them in. So the same thing with this. You would just go back and then draw the profile like this. And then go back in and shade the shadows in. So then with orthographic projection, just project the angle of the sun on the ground. Cast that one up. Then here's the corner of the spring line that's projected on the back wall diagonally from the sun. Then it's exactly the same curve that's an elevation here that's moved down like that. So with consistent shading, you can achieve a very powerful three-dimensional sketch. Gosh, look how amazing it looks. Just that simple niche just comes to life and just pops off the page. So now how would you draw this edge in shadow on the back of the pediment, the triangular tympanum? The same thing, you would just sketch a diagonal because the sun continues all the angles as the same angle on the back. Then you go back and lightly draw a deep shadow for the curve. This projects out to some degree like that. So given that technique, we managed to take just kind of a thin two-dimensional elevation and just made it jump off the page. So then to take this further, your user hopefully you're using graphite. I'm just using markers just so it's clear enough. But then I would go in the back plane, elements that are much further. If this were in front, this would be the lightest part of the drawing with no shading on it. Then I would go back in and shade in just the back. Like that. Then I would just try to draw a border for the shading around the object. Unfortunately, I'm using a very dull pencil. You know, to shade this, I would use the diagonal of the pencil edge onto the back to get some proper shading. Lightly done like that. So there, you got a very exciting little sketch in your sketchbook, properly proportioned using geometry, the golden section, properly drawn with shades and shadows. So in your sketchbook, that first sheet should have a nice small analytique, the plan, the section, and the elevation with shadows. Any questions? Am I going too fast? Any questions about that so far? Well, I just think this is very exciting to just take a two-dimensional sketch and make it just jump off the page like that. So does anyone have any questions about the sketch or the technique? If you want to be careful about your shading and your renderings, you know, what I would do is, you know, can you guys see the pencil marks?
Yes.
Okay. Now to shade this, you know, if you want to be more careful about this, you can use a straight edge. Then I would just use the edge of a sheet of paper or a triangle or something and just have the value just kind of stop. So that way, you know, the value just kind of just carefully ends at the sketch. You're not overlapping all your pencil strokes. Now that is exactly the same way that you can see the colonnade in perspective. That's exactly how you draw the elevation of the columns. The same very simple technique of just transferring the edges onto the back of the wall like that. Okay, it's 12:50. Let's take a 10-minute break and we're going to be doing some other exercises. Is anyone behind or completely lost? That either means I have no idea what I'm doing or I know exactly what we're doing. Okay, let's take a 10-minute break. You can finish your sketches. If I'm not sure how to actually, on Thursday, the students were actually able to upload their sketch that they did, but I'm not sure how to do that. Does anyone that's more technical savvy than I am for how to do that. I couldn't see everyone's sketches on Thursday or Tuesday. Okay, so why don't we regroup around 1? It's 12:52, and then I'll give you some other assignments to do. Is any of this making sense?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Okay, I'll see you guys in about 10 minutes. Okay, it's 1 o'clock. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. You can see the image on the screen, right? The brown paper.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think for next week we're going to be experimenting with different media. You can get some really phenomenal results with brown paper and white chalk and brown charcoal. It makes your images, your sketches look more three-dimensional. This is a sketch I did of the Kirby building. I have an office and I live here in downtown Dallas. But I did some facade studies showing the different layers of the wall. This is actually terracotta tile, but the sunlight casting on all these Gothic elements is really extraordinary, just very quickly drawn. Okay, so we're going to do 2 things. We're just going to sketch a quick elevation. I just want to see, and honestly, in these elevations, in your sketchbook, you can draw with, pencil, and the shadows in red just make the image look so much more stunning than just the basic pencil. But the pencil is fine too. You can use red Prismacolor to do the shadows. What we're going to do today is, and then does that make sense about how to properly draw the golden section rectangle? You start with a square. Then you would take your midpoint, take the compass from here, and then that will give you the golden section rectangle, which we see in a lot of classical, Renaissance, and modern architecture. So the diagonal shows the regulating line. It shows proportional relationships. So that's how we were able to proportion the opening for this arch. I think we saw that earlier. Okay, so let's just, in our sketchbooks, we're just going to draw 2 arches equally spaced from each other. And this can be a square, like that. Then you know how to draw the curve, right? You just take this. This would quickly draw a 45. And then go back to draw the arches. Now make sure that the arch begins like this. Like that. Then you can draw the brackets and the cornice, so on and so forth. Just kind of a quick study. Then let's go ahead and draw a floor plan of that. Okay, then you just go back. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Go back and shade in the piers and draw a thicker back wall. So let's draw the shadows in the 2 arched openings there. I'm just going to nominally choose 1 or 2 in the afternoon, so the sun will be more like that. Then just project up. Then draw the diagonals to transfer the spring line from here onto the back of that. Then if you want to, you can continue this edge down to here and just connect the dots. And then go back in and shade in the arches like that. Pretty simple and easy, right? The same thing with this on the right. So then let's just kind of add a square opening, a recess. So then in plan, I would go back and project those things down. Let's make the recess much thicker like that. So then how would you draw a shadow on these two rectilinear recesses? I go back to the plan, draw the same angle, project up, then continue the line where these things intersect. You just connect the dots and shade it in. But you know, look how simple and powerful this image is. And you go back in and put some shading on. Yeah, so look how much more three-dimensional that reads than just the kind of two-dimensional elevation. Okay, is anyone lost so far? That's fine if you are. So if you're drawing a large elevation with nothing but openings, this is exactly how you would draw it. But look how simple and elegant just that sketch looks with the shadows drawn in. Okay, so let's look at just some basic shading techniques. You know, if this were a large opening, you know, again, the worst thing to do is just shade in all different directions. What I like to do is start with, and with the edge of a triangle, you can start establishing some value lightly with the pencil at first. And then with a pink pearl eraser, I would go back and then clean up those edges with the either eraser shield or the triangle. So to make that darker, what I wouldn't do is go back in and just kind of what's called just waxing you with tremendous pressure. Just go back and fill all of these in with black. It's going to ruin the surface of the paper, and also you won't have an even shading on the corners. I just would go back and with slight cross section, go back and gradually build the layers up. just keep, doing another layer in the opposite direction. And again, you can use the edge of the piece of paper or a triangle to make sure that. So look how much cleaner this is versus this one. You can just gradually keep going back with opposite diagonals and make this thing darker and darker. Like that. Okay, so is everyone ready to start a new drawing? Any questions about that? Okay, have I lost anyone? I've already lost 2 people. Okay, anyone have any questions about this so far? Any questions or comments? Okay, let's try to draw up the cube or rectangle in a 3-dimensional realm. So to start this, I just would simply draw a square or 90 degrees and then just project down the verticals like that. So we're going to be drawing shades and shadows. Okay, so how about I draw a shadow on a 3-dimensional object? It looks very challenging. Where would I start to do that? Let's just try to draw the solar angle as parallel to the picture plane, the edge of the paper like this. Then I would just, because what you're going to be doing is you're going to be drawing this. You're going to be drawing a shadow on the cube, but how would you properly draw that? I just would take the solar angle and continue all these lines. Then I would just go back and draw the corner and hidden line, so that we'll have another edge there. So then when we try to draw the solar angle, let's just do like 30, 60. In other words, 30. That's 30 degrees, so on and so forth. Then we'll just project that shadow down onto the floor where all these things touch and intersect the corners. So to properly draw this shadow in 3-dimensional view, I just would go back in and connect the dots. Like this edge is exactly the same angle as this one. The shadow and the same angle that's here will be on the back plane there. So when we shade it in, we have the proper solar angle drawn onto the floor like that. I think that probably confused everyone.
A little bit.
Okay, it looks like an easy drawing, but to carefully draw this, there are some complex elements to do. Let's go back for a minute. Okay, so let's draw the cube or the rectangle. The square is 90 degrees. This will exactly be the same angle. You can do 45 degrees. Then I would just draw the dashed lines to show the corners. Okay, so can everybody see the blue pencil at all? Okay, so let's just say the solar angle is here, parallel to the picture, the edge of the picture. Just draw some horizontals like that. And then with your triangle, I would go back, let's do 30, 60. Then the sun is going to be casting the corners down onto the floor like this. Okay, so watch carefully while I finish this. So this edge is, shadows cast, the sun cast angular elements the same angle on the floor. So in other words, you would just connect these dots. The same angle as this one. And the shadow from this edge is here. Connect the dots, connect the dots. And just go back in and fill in. Like that. Okay, so this is the cast shadow. This is the part in shade. I'm sorry, the part in shade. Now the shadow is always darker than the part in shade, so when you start shading these, and actually the part in shade actually has reflected light from the table here. So, if you just start freehanding some of these, I could just quickly freehand this, then show. This is really just to make your sketch look more three-dimensional. Then this part will always be lighter than the shadow on the floor. So then if the sun is up here, then there won't be any value on that. It'll just be some light value onto the front of that. Then what you can do is go back into the background and lightly shade in. So that way the cube or the rectangular solid looks very three-dimensional. you know, if you analyze this drawing, then these angles are always exactly the same angle. The shadows that are cast is exactly the same angle as the edge there. The same thing with this one, with this one. It just kind of takes practice to properly draw these. You know, the study of shades and shadows is very difficult to do, especially in 3 dimensions. But okay, we're going to draw one other elevation. Are you guys still lost? Any questions about the assignments or?
Working on them.
Okay. Well, yeah, again, this is just for fun. These are, I'm not sure if these are too complicated or too easy. Any suggestions or comments? If you guys want to, I kind of would like to see your sketches that you're doing. Of course, these are not for grades, but you can email me at jcantrelldesign@yahoo.com. I'd love to see what you actually did in the class. Just, if you're not drawing, that's fine too. But I just would kind of like to see just your level, because I'm just assuming that people really haven't drawn very much before in the class. But okay, so we're just going to quickly in your sketchbook draw a triumphal arch like this. Well, just loosely based on this is just kind of a really easy facade to draw. But so to start this, I would draw 2 squares in your sketchbook. Start with this one. You can measure it. So 2 squares like that. Then try to equally divide this line into 3 segments. 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, with just some light guidelines. Then let's just kind of add some thickness to these columns, these piers. Yeah, I'm trying to draw the facade of the Trevi Fountain. Have you been to the Trevi Fountain?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. You know, it has those unbelievable sculptures, and we're not going to draw the sculptures right now, but then we're going to draw the large arch that's in the center. What I would do is divide this part into halves. So this will become the spring line for the large entry arch that has that sculpture, I think of Zeus in the middle of it. Then with some of the graphic techniques, you're going to divide, you're going to draw the arch. This is A, this is A. I'll draw that curve, then you'll draw the other curve. Then you'll draw the opening at the bottom. Okay, so then off to the right, I would just draw a large rectangle like that. Like that. So let's try to draw the entablature. I'm just going to abstract kind of a large cornice that projects out. Then I'll just draw the frieze here across like that. So with the plan projection techniques, I just would project these elements down to draw the plan. So these verticals are large buttresses or piers that project out. And I just draw a semicircle for the niche. Like that. And I would just go back and roughly shade in like this for the wall thickness. So then to draw the shadows, the same techniques we've been doing earlier today should apply for this one. So I just would draw an angle in the plan like this. Cast that up like that. Draw the diagonals, connect the dots. The same thing with the arch. I would just draw the solar angle on the ground wherever this line touches the curve. Go up like that. Spring lines there. Then this will have kind of a unique shadow because it's not flat, it's actually curved. It would just look something like that. But you don't have to know how that shadow works to actually draw that in 3 dimensions and go back in and then the same thing on the cornice. I would go back in and draw the diagonals for the solar angle. Like that. Now on the shadows for these, keep in mind that the buttresses project out, so the shadow will be shorter. Then of course these project out further, so the shadow will be longer like that. But look how much more three-dimensional that elevation looks than just the two-dimensional study that we did earlier. Then, to take this further, I would just do some shading around the back of this. Even in here too as well. To make this facade project off the paper like that. So how are we doing on this one? That doesn't sound very good.
It was a little bit fast.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, just tell me to slow down. Yeah. Next, we're going to be drawing shades and shadows on this. No, I'm kidding. We're not going to. It'll be very difficult to draw. I'm not even sure how I would be able to teach that to students how to draw that. How many of you guys were in the perspective drawing lecture on Thursday?
I was.
Oh, good. Okay. Are y'all able to see the PDF again?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So kind of what we did today is the same typology of how all these renderings are actually done. Now these are what's called ink wash. This isn't graphite, but the ink wash is like it's a kind of a thin layer of watercolor and just ink. But you can get some really clear, smooth shading with just the ink washes, without overdoing the drawings. Okay, well, it's about 1:38. Do you guys have any questions so far? I think we covered a lot of information. We did a lot of drawings. I just like to show the shadows in red to look bolder and more exciting. So any questions about the drawing types or shading techniques or?
Which book do you recommend on shading techniques?
I wish there was a really good book about that, but the ones that I haven't really seen a lot of great books on. You have to look at other artists' work. I wish there was a great book on shading. I'm not sure there is one. But I think if you look at Carl Christian Huser's freehand drawing and sketching, that'll give you some ideas about how to properly shade things.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I think I mentioned that on last Tuesday, didn't I?
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, what I was showing is I just kind of gave you some quick basic sketch tutorials on how to properly shade something. The best kind of shading is where you let the graphite complete the edge for you. Which means, let me get my triangle. Let's kind of take a look at hold on just a moment. Like if I were to shade a pediment, then I think I would just lightly with your triangle go back and show some, there's several ways you can do that. You can show some parallel lines like that. Then if you're drawing shading on a curve, I don't have a circle template with me, but the best thing to do is kind of just show some parallel lines. Like that, that kind of just, you can go back in on the dark side, you can go back in and just use what's called the parallel line system to show the three-dimensional objects from shadow, then of course to the light source. That. The best ones to do are the ones that actually create the value for you. And by that, I mean, is that instead of drawing the edge, or you can create the edge for you with value, I would just go back and with diagonal strokes. go back in and clean up your work. Then at this point, you don't really even need to go back and darken in a line because the value makes the edge for you. The same thing with the shadow on the background. Like you don't have to draw lines for every single shadow. See, look how, a certain mystery about it. You can see we don't need to draw a line to show all the edges because the value creates the edge for you. It's just a matter of using your straight edge and your triangle to kind of draw these visible effects like that. The same thing, if you look at the pediment that I've drawn, this is for the Dallas Country Club. This is, I think, the third country club that was burned or demolished. But on the right side, can you guys see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. You don't have to draw a line for every single edge. I don't need a line to show me that the pediment continues across like that. So part of this is just knowing what to omit and knowing what to draw in. The same thing with the capitals. It's such a small detail that I wouldn't need to go back and draw any details or dots. Just the light coming from the left side is enough to show that the capitals are curved and three-dimensional like that. And this is just nothing but shading built up in values like I kind of just showed you earlier. Okay, we have about 15 more minutes. Does anyone have any questions or comments or something that they wanted to learn how to draw and I didn't get to? Any suggestions?
I have a question.
Sure.
It's sort of about the various values used from dark to light
Okay.
in shades. So I guess I think of the drawing as the paper, then a light shade, then a medium shade, then a dark shade.
Okay.
But I'm not sure that that's the right way to conceptualize it to get a, to establish the values and the forward and background of the drawing. What would you suggest?
You mean in terms of actually shading something in?
More to get a three-dimensional effect or to get a dynamic effect, can you simplify how would you simplify the darks and the lights?
I would always start off shading the light, the lights first, and then gradually get darker. If does that answer your question? You mean, can you see this one on the? Hold on, let me. So let's look at this. Can you see the diagram, my drawing table?
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, you might be a little bit more specific.
I'm sorry I'm a little tongue-tied, but I guess that in that drawing, you have the top of the cube, which is the paper, so there's no shadow on it at all. You have the darkest value, which is the shadow itself. You have the part and shade, which is medium. And then you have the background, which is lightly shaded. So to me, I see sort of a finite number of values used to establish the 3D effect.
Yes. Yeah, the paper is another value itself because the paper really has no value to it all. You have to kind of build up the layers and make sure that the lightest part is completely clean of no values. Because otherwise, it's going to look I mean, if you put value on everything, it's going to ruin the intensity of the three-dimensional image, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have to use the color of the paper as part of the shading as well, too. The same thing with, I think, the elevation that I just drew that has you know, because obviously I'm using, like, for example, in other words, I would go back in and shade in to make sure the front plane is just the value of the paper. I just would go back and lightly show that this is recessed and that the paper itself has no value. So that's actually the part that comes forward to you first. And then the values that are added later project things in the background. But I'm not sure, did that answer your question? Or?
Yeah, in an interesting and indirect way. I'm thinking of it more quantitatively, and you seem to be thinking of it more spatially, which is very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I guess given that scenario, I'm not sure how to really shade otherwise. I'm just so used to drawing in this technique that I'm not sure that really answered your question or not.
It does, just in an unexpected way. Thank you.
Oh, and well, how do you normally shade your drawings? I'm just curious.
In a sense, haphazardly, but basically light, medium, dark.
Okay. Well, going further in that, you know, this looks like there's really one medium value, there's medium and light, but I think the strongest ones have the dark value. So I would go back in and with some other intensities, another layer cross hatching, I would go back and make some of these darker like that. Then if you go back to the PowerPoint, you look at some of these images, you can see where it says J. Cantrell and there's that little sketch. You know, the brightness, can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Okay, the brightness of the paper is really everything, because look how much further back the dark projects that picture plane into the background. You know, if I were to put value on the section cut, it would sort of lose that intensity. But this is nothing, because a lot of people were asking me, now, is this a brown paper and pencil? No, this is a completely white piece of paper with just layers and hours and days of just building up values. Because, you know, the best part is leaving that paper completely clean and unobstructed. I mean, you can see some construction lines lightly, but I just like to show the construction line because it looks like, you know, a computer would just print out a piece of paper. But again, if you look at these close, you can still see the pencil marks. It's not just a perfectly smooth out photograph. Now, Augusta Schwaze, these are not graphite. This is actually line with an ink drawing, line drawing. And you know, the question is, how big are these sheets? When I looked at Piranesi's renderings as a kid, I thought, these are huge. These must be, you know, like 36 inches or maybe 5 or 6 feet. Then there was an exhibit on his work at SMU in I think the library or the gallery. They were like only like 18 by 24. I thought, I mean, it's disturbing. The scale, the grandeur is much larger on the computer than you can actually see in person. It's kind of like when you go to see Vermeer paintings, and if you've never seen them in person, they look like these gigantic monumental works of art. There's these really tiny 12-inch by 12-inch square paintings. It's just, you know, I was saying in the perspective lecture, is the illusion of grandeur is simply just an illusion. But they're perceived as these giant images. They're actually relatively small. I just thought that was an interesting correlation of the scale of drawings. I mean, like the scale of these are huge. These are larger than life animals in a cave. They're drawn right onto the earth there. Yeah, so I guess, you know, when I saw the pyramid, at first I was a little bit discouraged. I thought, oh, wow, they're so much smaller than I can perceive them in a book or, you know, or online, but they're still absolutely extraordinary to see. Okay, well, we have about 10 more minutes. I think we covered a lot of ground. I guess I'm used to, I'm always just drawing in a hurry because I always have a deadline, so I'm just drawing faster than probably desired. But We went over a lot of really compelling information. I guess to make a long story short, you know, you can take a simple two-dimensional sketch and make it three-dimensional without having to worry about drawing a literal three-dimensional perspective or an axonometric. So if you have a client meeting, I like to just print out, because I still do computer drawings in CAD, and then go back and draw the shadows in there because your clients will respond to three-dimensional images better than just the line drawings. These are just some very simple yet complex. They look simply sketched, but there's a very complex language on how to properly calculate the stage and shadows. Hopefully these assignments were not too intimidating for you to kind of digest. I just like to show beginners or anyone interested in drawing how to properly, how things are properly done. Because if you go on the line, if you go on the computer, you go on, the 3D, the SketchUp, you don't have to really think about it. It's already done for you. So when I teach my beginning designing students or drawing students, they're completely confused. They couldn't believe that there's a calculative way to properly show the shadows. And when you get on the computer, they're somewhat spoiled because everything's drawn for them first. I've had so many students where, they're in their beginning studios, they're drawing and design studios, and then they go use the software first. It really ruins their thought process on how to properly design and draw something. So I like to go back to the original ways of drawing, so they're not spoiled. So they know the painstaking process of drawing these first, and then having the computer to go back and draw all these things, because you can draw the shadows in just a click of a button in SketchUp, Rhino, or some of the other softwares. But it's really good for your creative imagination to actually learn how to properly draw these things without having somebody do it for you. That's kind of really the beauty of this class. I tell my beginning students, I teach a very first design studio and a very first drawing studio, is that it's kind of like learning music and not knowing how to properly play the basic scales of the chords. The rap artists can sample music and mix people up, the music and the lyrics, but without actually manually doing these, there's a huge sort of creative loss between the way you actually manually calculate these things and draw these versus just doing everything on the computer. So I just think in modern and classical architecture, it's always very important to learn how to do things manually first in any field. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we have about 5 more minutes. Any more questions or comments? Or I think Valerie would, or maybe Michelle is going to have you fill out an evaluation, just because we're kind of new to doing these online classes. I think I always have a hard time getting the class together and ordered online versus in person. So we're trying to make the class run as smoothly as possible. And again, this is only your second class. I mean, these are very complex subjects to draw. Hopefully I was able to narrow down to some simple study ideas you can actually kind of implement in your work quickly. These are not the easiest subjects. There's very complex angles and curves, but hopefully I was trying to make this as simple as possible, so that when your sketchbook you can have some very compelling images to draw. This is to draw the golden section, that's not really easy for beginners. But it's really amazing to see that you can actually draw from observation and actually use geometry to figure out some of the problems to solve some of the geometrical problems for you. Yeah. It always just takes practice. If you want to play music like Chopin or Beethoven, you've got to practice these. There's only so many things. It's really hard to tell people how to draw. You have to just do it, because architecture and drawing is a heuristic process. It means you learn by doing. So the more you draw these, the better your sketches are going to be. I had a drawing teacher that said, draw this 50 times. Even if you're miserable, you're crying, you can't even draw anymore, but at least you're going to be able to draw this again and again as carefully as possible. Okay, well, I think we can go ahead and close if there are no other questions or comments. Thanks for participating. Hopefully, I'm going to be doing these every Tuesdays and Thursdays until we get some incredible Piranesi renderings, right? Okay, these are just some, were these subjects too complicated? I'm really not sure because I don't know you in the class so far, but it's good to get feedback.
No, they were fine.
Okay, good. Okay, well, I'll see if Valerie can upload a survey sheet. I'm not sure if she's already done that, but it would be nice to get some feedback. And thanks for participating. I hope you can actually keep continually sketching. I'll see you guys next Tuesday for an advanced lecture on shades and shadows and of course the drawing. So, and then of course on Thursdays, every Thursday I do perspective drawing. So that's a little more exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome. Okay, have a good weekend. Have a good week.
Thanks, you too.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.